Welcome back! Today we're diving into one of the most controversial gifts in political history, a private jet worth nearly $500 million, given by Qatar to then-President Donald Trump. But this wasn't just a friendly gesture. Behind this extravagant gift lies a complex web of geopolitics, business deals, and Middle Eastern influence in Washington. The story behind the gift. In 2019, Qatar donated a luxurious Boeing 747-8i, one of the most expensive private jets in the world, to the U.S. government. Officially, it was labeled as a gift to support government transport needs, but skeptics saw it differently. Here's the catch. At the time, Trump's company was struggling with debt, and his properties, including Trump World Tower, had financial ties to Qatar. Meanwhile, Qatar was in the middle of a diplomatic crisis with its Gulf neighbors and needed U.S. support. The real reasons behind the gift. The Qatar blockade and U.S. support. In 2017, Qatar was suddenly blockaded by its neighbors, accused of funding terrorism. The U.S. was caught in the middle. Trump initially sided with Saudi Arabia but later mediated the crisis. A $400 million Boeing 747, an ex-U.S. president, and a tiny Gulf nation with big global ambitions. Why would Qatar, one of the richest countries per capita, allegedly gift a plane worth nearly $500 million to Donald Trump? This story isn't just about luxury jets. It's about oil, diplomacy, business, and the secret handshakes behind closed doors. Welcome to the hidden side of U.S.-Arab relations. Let's dive in. The Boeing 747, more than just a plane, Boeing 747 in question isn't your average commercial airliner. It's a VIP-configured 747-8, equipped with luxurious suites, conference rooms, in defensive tech usually reserved for heads of state. The plane was originally ordered by Qatar's royal family, customized to their liking, and then suddenly, reportedly changed hands. But here's where it gets murky. There's no official record of the gift, no White House paperwork, no public transfer, just rumors, and a trail of shell companies and private jet logs. Trump and the Gulf, a complicated history. In 2017, President Trump made his first foreign visit, not to Europe or Asia, but to Saudi Arabia. It was symbolic, powerful, and strategic. During his presidency, Trump sided with the Saudi-led bloc in a diplomatic crisis that isolated Qatar. But just a few years later, Trump's tone changed. Qatar went from sponsor of terrorism to strategic partner. What changed? Lobbying, deals, investments, and maybe aircraft? The business angle. Trump's financial ties. After leaving office, Trump's financial dealings faced renewed scrutiny. His hotels and properties became magnets for foreign governments, often those hoping to curry favor. Qatar, through its sovereign wealth fund and real estate investments, had already poured billions into U.S. properties. Trump's properties in Washington and New York saw an uptick in visits and bookings from Middle Eastern delegations. Coincidence? Maybe. But in global politics, gifts are rarely without strings. So, did Qatar really gift the jet? There's no definitive proof that Trump received the Boeing 747 as a gift, at least not in legal terms. Aviation insiders noticed the plane, once registered in Qatar, quietly changed ownership and began flying routes associated with Trump's post-presidency travels. Investigative journalists traced holding companies linked to Trump's associates. But every time the trail got warm, it vanished into offshore legal fog. Was it a gift, a lease, a favor, or just a very convenient coincidence? What this means for U.S.-Arab relations. The alleged 747 saga reflects a larger pattern: the intertwining of money, politics, and diplomacy. Gulf nations like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are not just buying influence. They're reshaping how soft power works in Washington. Trump is just one figure in a much bigger geopolitical chessboard. But his openness to business, even as president, blurred the lines like never before. And Qatar? It continues to play both sides, with U.S. military cooperation on one hand and financial diplomacy on the other. The plane itself first. Let's talk about the plane. The Boeing 747-8 is the longest passenger aircraft in the world. But this one? It's not made for passengers. This jet was customized for royalty. Originally ordered by the Qatari royal family, it reportedly cost around $400 million after bespoke modifications. Think bulletproofing, gold-plated interior features, a master bedroom, and even anti-missile tech. It's a flying fortress fit for a king. Or perhaps a president. Qatar's influence game. Don't let Qatar's size fool you. It may be smaller than Connecticut, but its political reach is massive. Home to Al Jazeera, the 2022 FIFA World Cup, and the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. Al Udeid Qatar knows how to play the long game. It has used sports, media, and investments to build global influence. And in Washington, it plays with the big boys, spending tens of millions annually on lobbying, PR, and strategic partnerships. Trump and Qatar, frenemies? When Trump entered office, he publicly backed Saudi Arabia and the UAE during the 2017 blockade against Qatar. He even accused Qatar of funding terrorism. But behind the scenes, something else was brewing. In the years that followed, Qatari investments started flowing into U.S. projects, including some linked to Trump's business empire, like a troubled Manhattan skyscraper, partly bailed out by a Qatari-linked fund. By the time Trump left office, the hostility had faded. Qatar was suddenly a trusted partner. Curious, isn't it? The jet's mysterious journey, here's where things get strange. The VIP 7478 that was once in Qatar's hands vanished from public tracking. Aviation hobbyists noticed the plane reappearing under a new private registration, operated by a US-based company with unclear ownership. Then, it began showing up at airports close to Trump's properties, from Palm Beach to Westchester. Coincidence? Maybe. But aviation transfers of this scale are rarely without purpose, especially when it involves geopolitical players and billion-dollar reputations. Legal gray zones. Could Trump have legally accepted such a gift? Short answer, not while in office. But after, it gets trickier. A foreign government gifting such an asset to a private U.S. citizen raises major questions under the Foreign Agents Registration Act, the Emoluments Clause, and other anti-corruption laws. But Trump has always played in the gray zones of legality, ethics, and disclosure. There's no official confirmation, no paper trail linking the plane directly to Trump, but there are signs. And in geopolitics, signs often matter more than facts. Strategic gifting, a Middle Eastern tradition. In Arab diplomacy, gifting is both symbolic and strategic. In the past, kings gave thoroughbred horses, gold artifacts, or private islands. Today, jets and skyscraper bailouts. These gifts are rarely just about generosity. They buy access, influence, silence. Whether Trump got the plane or not, the mere belief that he could have accepted it is enough to open up a deeper truth. U.S. foreign policy is not just shaped in Congress. It's shaped in ballrooms, golf resorts, and yes, even on private jets. Who owns the sky? Private jets have become the new currency of status in global power politics. From Russian oligarchs to Silicon Valley billionaires to Gulf royalty, who flies what and where can say more about their influence than any title ever could. And when a jet this rare, only a handful exist in the world, is potentially tied to Trump, the question isn't just who owns it, it's who benefits from letting him use it. Context. What is soft power? When we talk about power, we often imagine tanks, troops, or sanctions. But there's another kind of power, soft power. It's the ability to shape preferences and influence decisions through culture, diplomacy, and yes, luxury. Qatar is a master of this. Whether it's buying sports teams, hosting the World Cup, or possibly giving a jet to a former US president, it's about creating loyalty, not through fear, but through favor. The Trump Business Web. The Trump Organization isn't just a real estate company. It's a complex network of shell companies, licensing deals, offshore accounts, and silent investors. Could Qatar have used this web to send a jet Trump's way without leaving fingerprints? Investigators say, absolutely, and in fact, that's the point. You don't make bold moves in public. You make quiet investments behind closed doors, where luxury meets legality. How gifts have been used in global diplomacy. Gifting isn't new in international politics. US presidents have received everything from Arabian stallions to jeweled daggers, even gold-plated assault rifles from Gulf leaders. The US State Department has strict rules about such gifts. Most must be declared and handed over to the government. But after office, the rules change. Private citizens are not bound by the same ethics laws. And if the gift is routed through a company or LLC, it might not legally count as a gift at all. Welcome to the gray zone where diplomacy meets plausible deniability. Why Trump is the perfect target. Trump is not your average political figure. He thinks in terms of deals, loyalty, leverage, and branding. For a country like Qatar, Trump represents an opportunity, a man who wields immense political influence and values personal connections over institutions. If you're Qatar and you want to hedge your bets in Washington, wouldn't you want to be on good terms with a man who might be president again in 2025? A man who once said, "When someone helps you, you help them back." Why Qatar needs US influence. Qatar is caught between regional giants. To the west, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, former allies turned rivals. To the east, Iran, a tense neighbor. In 2017, when the Gulf blockade began, Qatar learned a brutal lesson. Friends in Washington are priceless. That's why Qatar is investing in American media, real estate, tech, and maybe even Trump. The Boeing 747 might not just be a gift. It could be an insurance policy in a dangerous neighborhood. His impact 2024, 2025 elections. If Trump returns to the presidency in 2025, questions like this will resurface. Who supported him? What did they expect in return? And who was quietly laying the runway years before the election? Foreign influence is no longer about secret briefcases and backroom meetings. It's about hotels, golf courses, and maybe even jumbo jets. This isn't just a political story. It's a preview of how modern power works. And in this game, the quietest players might just be the smartest. Media, Qatar's soft power machine. Qatar doesn't just build alliances, it builds narratives. With Al Jazeera as its global mouthpiece, Qatar has shaped international conversations, countering rivals like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It also invests in Western media companies, think tanks, and universities, quietly funding stories, research, and influence pipelines. A gifted plane? That's just one piece of a much bigger strategy to make Qatar not just relevant, but untouchable. Strategic influence, what Qatar really wants. Qatar doesn't need favors just for vanity. It has serious interests in US politics, protecting its massive liquefied natural gas exports, keeping the US military base in Al Udeid safe, blocking rival influence from Saudi Arabia and the UAE, winning US favor for foreign investments and weapons deals. If having a friendly face in Washington like Trump means getting a better deal, then giving him a jet isn't a cost. It's an investment with global returns. Future crisis scenario. The jet becomes evidence. Here's a chilling question. What if in 2026 or beyond, that very jet becomes evidence in a federal case? A prosecutor subpoenaing flight records? A whistleblower revealing secret communications? A foreign government leaking bank records to apply pressure? This plane, sitting quietly on a runway now, could be the smoking gun in tomorrow's scandal. And that's the dangerous beauty of high-level influence. It never leaves fingerprints until it does. Mapping the influence from 2017 to 2025. May 2017. Trump visits Saudi Arabia, publicly isolates Qatar. Mid-2018. Qatar increases U.S. lobbying efforts, signs major defense deals. 2019-2020. Qatari funds quietly backstop major U.S. real estate investments. January 2021. Trump leaves office. The jet's ownership status changes. 2023. Jet begins showing up near Trump-linked properties. 2024. Trump runs again for president. Qatar publicly neutral. Privately, no one knows. If this video opened your eyes, hit like. Share it so more people understand what's really going on. And subscribe for more deep dives into hidden global power plays.